All these things matter whenever you're trying to design a good program. What is up? What's going on, YouTube? How are you doing? I'm doing great. I just finished the leg day. I don't know if you can see, but my sweatshirt is a little bit sweaty. But yeah. But I wanted to come on here and talk about what makes a good training program. So when you're designing your own workouts, or when you're having a coach or somebody else design it, like what makes a good program and is it good for you? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So there's a couple of things to consider whenever you are about to start a new program or you're considering switching up your current program. And these things to consider are volume, how many sets per week are you going to be doing, frequency, how many times a week are you going to be training, periodization, so that means how you split the different phases of your training, stimulus to fatigue ratio, so that means how much is the workout that you're doing contributing towards stimulating the muscle and improving adaptation versus making you feel tired and fatiguing your body. And the next one is overloading. Are you able to progressively overload and get stronger in those exercises and lifts that you're doing? And lastly, exercise selection. So what kind of exercises are in your workout? So when you're first looking at your exercise, you need to determine the amount of volume that you're going to be doing. And that's typically per week. So the amount of total sets that you'll be doing. For example, you can have X amount of sets for squats or X amount of sets for deadlifts per week. And you would divide that however you would, including all the other variations of that workout that you'll be doing. So for example, for me, I had around 10 sets of squat. So that was my volume for the week. And I trained squats this week twice. So that would be my frequency. So whenever you are designing your own program or you're looking at a new one, you got to determine how much of the exercises you're doing and how often you are doing them. So that's volume and that's frequency. Next, you also need to know how your workout is going to be structured in terms of its length, and that's called periodization. So how are you going to structure the length of your workout in X amount of weeks or months? For example, for me, I am structuring my workout for the first month. I would be focusing on the hypertrophy phase of my strength training. So that means building up the muscle and getting adapted to those lifts that I'm trying to get good at. And then once I've done that, I would switch to a higher weight, higher volume training where now I'm more focused on the strength portion of it and increasing my strength on those lifts. So how you periodize or how you split the different phases of your training matters. So that's the next thing that you need to consider. So next you have the stimulus to fatigue ratio. So is the workout you're doing taking a lot out of you and it takes a while to recover, versus is it giving you the proper stimulus that you need in order to be seeing the results that you want, in order to be stimulating the proper muscle development or strength increase versus the amount of fatigue that your body is accumulating from week to week. If you come in on Monday and you are hitting legs, for example, but it takes you 3 days to recover before you can hit your next workout, perhaps that's a little bit of a fatigue overload for you. And maybe you need to consider either reducing your volume or reducing the amount of exercise that you do so that you still get the proper stimulus for the muscle, but you won't be overloaded and you won't feel tired as much. So if it takes you 3 days or more for your muscles to recover, maybe you're getting a little bit more fatigue than you are getting stimulus, and maybe consider switching up your program or consider taking some sort of volume out to where you feel like you're good to go after a day or two, but you're still getting the proper stimulus to grow the muscle or have the proper strength adaptation that you're trying to get. Next, you got to make sure that your program is properly progressively overloading. So are you increasing your reps or your weight or your set from week to week? And is that helping you to get stronger, grow more muscle, and get better? If you're not progressively overloading those exercises, that means you're not improving. So if you did bench press 185 for 5 this week and you got it for 185 for 6 next week, that's a form of progressive overload. Or maybe you did 3 sets of 185 for 5, and then next week you included one more additional set of 185 for 5. That's also another form of progressive overload. So you got to be making sure that you are progressing in some sort of way, either in reps, weights, or sets. And I would highly recommend that you track your lifts, you track your numbers, and your total amount of sets and reps that you've done. So that way you can be meticulous when it comes to just how effectively you are progressively overloading, and it makes it easier to notice any kind of changes or any kind of progress in your training program. And then lastly, you have exercise selection. So depending on what your goals are, the exercise selection might be important. For example, if you are a bodybuilder and you're mainly focused on driving muscle growth and you're not really concerned with improving your strength on the big three, the squat, bench, deadlift, perhaps you may not include that in your program, and you might benefit a lot more from using machines or dumbbells to safely drive the hypertrophy or the muscle growth adaptation that you want without overloading your body with too much fatigue that comes from doing a lot of compound movements. Or another instance, if you're a powerlifter and your main goal is the 3 lifts, but you also want to make sure that you're hitting your accessories, perhaps you would have a few machine work here and there, and then still making time to make sure that you're properly training in those big 3 in different variation. For example, one day you might be training a low bar squat to improve your strength adaptation, and perhaps another day you might have a high bar squat more focused on the quad development and making sure that you have enough muscle to help you in your competition lifts. So every good program that you design would take into consideration what kind of exercises you're doing, and not just including any and all exercises that are available. So you must always take into consideration all these things whenever you're considering designing a new program, or you have somebody else design it for you and you're looking at it to make sure that it fits your goals. And a good program always takes into account the individual differences of the person that the program is meant for. So if you're working with a coach and he is a good coach, you would always make sure that the program that he gives you is suited to you and to your goals. And not only that, he also takes into account a lot of different factors such as your gender, your age, your body type, whether you're tall, you're short. All these things matter whenever you're trying to design a good program suited for that person, because one exercise might be a lot better suited for that person versus somebody else. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're trying to get very technical into the aspect of program design. Now, of course, you could go the route of just doing what works for you and not really worrying about these kinds of details. But if you're trying to get the most out of your training and get the most out of your time in the gym, I would highly advise and recommend that you take the time to make sure that you're actually going in with a proper plan in the gym and making sure that you are showing up with a game plan that's tailored to you, and that's going to help you reach the goals that you have set. But anyways, guys, I hope that was informative and gave you a little bit of insight into how program design works and what you need to consider when making your own program. And if you guys have any more topics that you would like to see me talk about and perhaps break it down in a way that might be helpful, comment down below and I will make sure to get to it. I just finished legs. I'm gonna go home and get some lunch, but I hope you guys find this helpful, and if you did, consider subscribing, become part of the channel, and go follow me at Ascension Fitness on Instagram. I post a lot of content there that you might find helpful. Until next time, peace.